Howdy and welcome. I'm Mike, your board gaming every dude, but for today you can call me the detective. Because this month I had the privilege of working through some really cool Pulp Detective themed games, and I want to share some of my favorite ones. So, fun fact, I'm actually stuck in this position, so now that I'm here, this is where I am for the whole video because I actually can't move. You can't move. Let's start with Pulp Detective. This is by Todd Sanders, and it is published by Albin Viard Studio Games Plus. Let's take a look real quick at how it plays solo. Alright, so I've got a sideways view here just so we can fit it into the camera. Now, this is Pulp Detective, the base game, with all expansions and a puzzle board. The base game does not come with this puzzle board. It lays out exactly the same. It's just a nice little bonus. Expansions are over here, and up here, and right there. So basically all this yellow here, this is the base game, and that's what I'll kind of walk you through very briefly to get an idea of the game. But first, let's look at some of this artwork. There's some cool stuff here. Like we've got this Nemesis action card here. The pulp work is just so beautiful. Let's look at the instruction booklets. So we've got the base game instruction booklet. Here we go. Base game instruction booklet. An expansion for sidekicks, double cross, and masterminds. A fiendish folio of cases, so just a lot of extra cases, and then hunchmen, gun mauls, and traps. So there's some fun stuff brought through each expansion. Let's look at how the game lays out. Right here we get to pick one of our cases. There are a lot of cases. This is the case of the Crimson Chemist, and I can choose a beginner game where we start at the 22nd hour of the day, or I can do a normal game with the N to start at 20, and it can be harder as you go down. And this is your timer. Each round, this little cube moves down. When it's in yellow, you're working in the daylight. And then here, it's working at night. That doesn't affect the game at all. It just kind of helps with the theme. So we're starting, basically we get 20 turns. There are ways to lose those turns, of course. Up here, we've got our stamina and our clues card. Our stamina lets us know how many dice we get to roll when that time comes. So right now we start the game at a 5. If we want an easier game, start with the B at a 6. Harder game, 4A. So we're going to start at a 5, and that lets us roll 4 yellow dice. And there's a little text here to let us know some different benefits and just help us if we don't understand. This here is our clues. In order to beat the game, we need to find 4 clues. So we start at 0, and each time we discover a clue, we move up. Once we get to 4 clues, we fight the final henchman, who gets determined between one of these 4, though there are other henchmen we can choose from. Or I'm sorry, final villains, not henchmen. There we go. We also get to choose our detective. There are a lot of detectives, each with their own special ability. I, of course, being me, have to choose Lieutenant Nightshade, Debonair Detective, because why not? But you can see he has a special action. When confronting the criminal, that's going to be the final guy, use the special action of any detective previously chosen in the game. Pretty cool. Alright, so these are just some detectives you can choose. There are plenty of others to pick from. We also gain items throughout the game, so we keep track of our items here. Right now, we don't have any, but if we earn an item, we'll move this marker to whatever item it is we have, each one giving you a different ability. So in this case, could get on a first aid kit, which lets me, if I want to use it, gain 2 stamina, which basically is more dice. Alright, so those are items, and there are several different item cards that you can select before you play. The locations are part of an expansion, so I won't go through those, but they just add a little flair to the game. Same thing with your sidekicks. I haven't gotten to play with that expansion yet, so I won't go through it, but it's an extra bonus to help you. We've also got our double cross cards. And you can see on the puzzle map here, if I can keep my head from getting it in the way, the puzzle, and again, that you have to buy separately. This puzzle game board lets you know exactly where to put everything. The only downside to the puzzle board is it does take a little time to put together because it's a puzzle, which I get it. It goes with the theme, and actually it's fun. It's pretty cool. So no big deal, but something good to know. It's not a board that you just unfold. You put it together. But it only takes about 2-3 minutes, maybe. All right, and then over here we've got more expansion with the henchmen, gun mauls, and traps. And I won't go into that as I haven't gotten to play through that myself. I also want to show you some of the other cards and artwork that we're going to see in the game. So there are other types of item cards, each with different items and abilities. We've also got some different, I'm not sure if these are detectives or villains. I haven't gone through those yet. But I know that these are additional villains. They are called masterminds that you can go up against. We have some locations. So there are 6 random locations that you can pick from. We've got the other 3 down here. And then we've got all these cool detectives to pick from. Captain Harrington, each with their own special action. We've got the Agent of Change, Peter Quentin, and we can see what type they are with the justice scale there. It doesn't really mean a whole lot other than it lets you know what type of special action it'll be. So this dude uses his fist. Detective Paulson always gets his man. It's pretty cool. We've got a Playboy adventurer, T. Fleming Roberts, Velda Scott, Private Eye. Pretty cool. We've got Brick Larson, and there are detectives on the flip side as well. Sarah Bailey, Betty O'Leary, Sergeant Jim Daly. There are all kinds of cool different ones. We've got right here an undercover agent, Renee Fandor. So we got all kinds of cool stuff right there for you. All right, let me show you how it plays. I have this laid out as if I've been playing for some time. When you start the game, this is empty, but for sample purposes, I'll show you. What you do on your turn is you look at your turn marker. Okay, we're on the 20th hour. It's daytime. We've read our case, and I forgot to flip through all the cases that we have. There's the case of 13 times a crime, the case of the death's door damsel, the case of the bullied banker, and on and on. There are many different cases, each with their own little twist. We're playing the case of the Crimson Chemist. So on my first turn, what I'll do is I will draw 3 cards. See how they have letters? 1, 2, 3. So I've got an I, and an F. You don't have to, I don't remember exactly what the letters stand for. It's like information, and follow a lead. That's what it is, follow a lead. But basically, here's the thing. If I choose to keep one of these, I can only keep one. If I pick the one with a question mark, it means I stand a good chance of getting a clue if I successfully meet the challenge on the other side. If I pick the one with the hat there, it means I stand a good chance of getting an item. All right, so I'm going to pick, let's say I want to solve a clue. So I'm going to keep this one. That's going to be my current storyline right there. I discard one of these. I'll discard the item, put it in my discard pile, and the remaining one gets shuffled back into the deck. I won't shuffle it. You can just put it to the bottom of the deck. It's up to you. All right, so here we are. I've got my storyline. And what I have to do is I see I'm got an informant. I'll take that. And we can ignore this for now. What we're looking for is the number here. I have to remember this is sideways. We're looking for the number here. So this is if it's around day 24. So we're not down to day 18 yet, or hour 18, whatever, the number. We're at 20. So since we're above the 18, we got to solve this top challenge. And if we beat it, then we get this item here. We get a clue. If we don't beat it, guess what? We lose time. So we move our block down 1. Okay, So if we were down at day 18 though, or below, we would solve this one. Or I keep calling it day, whatever, hours, time, I don't know what to call it. But anyway, if you're at the number 18, then you go here. We'll try to call it hours. And same here, if you're at hour 9 then or below, then you would have to solve those three. So I'm up here. What that means is I have to roll these three things. My stamina is at 5, so I get 4 dice. So I'm going to roll my 4 dice. All right. And I had to roll a footprint, which means I have to do some travel. I had to roll a newspaper, which means I'm going to get some information, and there's going to be some fighting, so I needed to roll a bullet. I did not get the bullet. I got a newspaper and a footprint, no bullet. And I have no special skills right now that allow me to re-roll. So I've got that and that. Those were a fail, and I don't get to re-roll, so I failed, which means that this time marker goes down 1 because I failed it. And now I also have to put this into my storyline. So the way it works, let's pretend that this was totally empty, okay? Let's pretend that was totally empty and this was my first to lay down. I would place it right there at the top. When I go to do the next one, say I take this poor dude, and we go to solve this, then I would lay it down. I can either lay it as a subplot, this is my main storyline, the next row down is a subplot, and you can go down one more subplot. The thing is, I could never go further to the right than I have at the top. So that's why you see that cascade effect. So the next one would have to go here, and then I could go there if I wanted. I could also go there, right? And I could do this, but I could not do that because the top one always, the storyline has to be the biggest, and then you can cascade down. The other thing to notice are there is a puzzle mechanic. So you see this color right here. You want to try to connect these colors to each other. So we see, again, you don't restructure it during the game, but since I'm just showing you how it plays, that's how we're doing it. So I've got a red one here. Let's say I drew that. Well, I'm going to try and connect it to here, but unfortunately I can't because that's red and that's red. I can't because there's no card there, so it's got to go here. That was unfortunate. Or I can put it to the side. Let's do that. Now let's say that I drew this one here. It's got green on the top, red on the sides. Man, no luck. But anyway, the goal is, if you can, you want to get something that connects in some way. And we're just not running into luck. But if they did connect, if you had like red and red, what that means is you get an extra re-roll for every one of those connections you make. So in this case, if I had had that, I could have re-rolled one dice and hopefully actually made it. All right, so that's how the storyline and subplots work. If you fail, you get to take a twist marker, and it's not just of your choice, it's of one of the die that you rolled. So I rolled a newspaper, I know that, so I could take one of these and I'll save it right here. And if it's yellow, it means that I have not used it. What that means is on a future turn, if I roll a newspaper, and we'll pretend I didn't, or let's say I needed 2 newspapers, but I only rolled 1, I could use this twist marker to satisfy that need. So it's good to save these. You can only save 2 with no penalty. So if I failed twice, I could have 2. If I choose to save a third one, I lose an hour. If I choose to save a fourth one, I lose 2 hours. So that's pretty expensive, and you may not want to do that. You may just want to have 2 and use them. You never have to take a twist marker, but you can. All right. As far as the layout here, those are just the dice you can use. Then over here are extra dice that you gain as items. So some of your items will allow you to get like the newsboy, which is this red dice, which means you can now roll 5 dice. All right, so there are different ways to help yourself out as you go through this. So you can see basically you're putting a puzzle together, you are making choices with your drafting, saving and using items as needed, and then of course there are additional things added by all of these expansions. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so as you saw there, one of the really cool things about Pulp Detective, this is actually a solo game. It does have a variant for 2 players, but that's extra. So this is made to be played alone. Looking at that artwork, oh man, the artwork itself is beautiful. And the price is, it's not expensive. I think it's between, whether it's between $15 and $25, I don't remember. But here's the downside, availability. This is no longer in print. So the last I checked, there's a site called Noble Knight Games, and I'll put the link in the description below. Sometimes they have harder to find out-of-print games like this. Right now they don't. So I actually got Pulp Detective and the 3 expansions, even though it all came in one box. So I don't have all the boxes, but I have all the expansions. I got those right side up, how about that? I got those through a trade on Board Game Geek, which is a website that can be used for trading. It's not very user-friendly for those who are new, but if you're a little more experienced, you're welcome to look into that, and sometimes they have it. So for me it was worth it, but it is hard to come by. Regardless, if you're a fan of that art style, this time period, super cool. You did kind of see how the play is not so much about actually solving a mystery, right? That's just, you're telling a story, yes, but you're not actually solving a mystery, and that's important to know. If you want to solve a mystery, this is not the game for you. All right, that's Pulp Detective. Let's take a look at our next game. Oh, this is not as easy as it looks in the movies to sit this way. All right, here we go. Deadline. I'm actually stuck in this position, so I won't be moving for several days, probably. All right, so we've also got Deadline here. Deadline is published by WizKids, and the designers, who we got here? A.B. West and Dan Schnake. West, that's a very cool name. As you can see, I love the artwork, but here, let me just be straight up front. This is not a solo game. All right, this is a 2 to 4 player game, I believe. Yes, 2 to 4 players. However, it's a cooperative game, and cooperative games tend to lend themselves towards solo play, often without any modification. That is not the case with Deadline. All right, so Deadline, let me tell you what, let me just show you how it plays and what I did to make it a solo play. All right, so let's take a closer look at Deadline. I'll show you how I can play it solo real quick. You've got the instruction manual here, and you'll see it actually isn't too bad to go through at all. You can play the game right after reading this. You've got several different detectives you can choose to play as, each with their own special ability. Gloria Graham, look at that artwork, beautiful. Eva Gardner, Pete Lorre, and so on. I, of course, had to go with Dash Hamlet, because I'm me. All right, then we've got these nice little end of round, starting the next round, basically just player guides right here. In order to play this game solo, I set it up for the 2-player rules, which means that there are 2 decks. You have this deck draw pile and your discard pile, and what you do is you take 5 for your hand, and then 5 would be for the second player, but we don't have to worry about that. I just take 5 cards and I set it right here, and I'll tell you the adjustment I make. In order to set up the game, you open your case book to the case. In this case, we're doing case file number 1. There are little envelopes in the box showing all of the files. This one, case 1. I believe there are 12 different cases that you get to solve. So I read case 1 and I set up according to what it said. Case 1 comes with 18 clue cards. We put the clues here, and in the setup it told me that 3 of those clues are going to be available, which means I can try to solve these 3 cards right now. These are not accessible yet. Then I have my draw pile. I just put a discard there for sample. And I have these 4 tokens flipped to the match side. There should actually be 3 bullets here. I dropped one of them. I'll have to find it later. But you put those out. We have our case questions. These are what we're going to answer when we finish the game to see if we can actually solve the mystery. Don't look at it until the end of the game. After you've answered these questions, you check to see if you're correct in the solution book. All right, here's how you go about playing it. Put your detective out. You've got a hand of 5 cards. These cards all have little icons on the bottom that represent different things thematically. Stopping to have a drink, getting something at the bar, having to fight a little bit with the gun there, and then you've got matches here, or maybe cash if you need to buy something or terribly bribe something. And then of course you've got disguises with the hat there. There may be other icons. Then there are these twist cards. These twist cards are bad, almost always anyway. And what they do is they clutter your hand, but also at a certain point you may have to play it with some kind of negative effect happening. So you have 5 cards at the beginning of each round. First thing we want to do is we're solving a mystery. So in this case, somebody's been murdered, I believe, and in order to find out who did it, we have to investigate different locations. I've got the Tattler office, Buckminster's apartment, and the Candle Cafe. Let's go to Buckminster apartment. I believe that's where the body is. So we're going to go to the scene of the crime. That is the one I'm playing. You'll see there are 4 icons. I have to lay a sequence of cards so that all 4 of these icons are visible in my layout. So here's how it works. I've got these 5 cards. I'm going to lay down one of them. And remember, I just have to have these 4 icons show. They don't have to be in that order. I laid down one card. That's good. Now, let's see. I've got the matches. So I can go to the left or to the right. Well, I can't use that. To the left or to the right. The blank is a wild. So here's how it goes. I could lay this over top because it's a wild, and that's a wild. So this would be the new layout. If I wanted to lay this one down, I could do it as well, because the whiskey could go over the wild, the gun matches the gun, and I have $1. This one I could not lay down because I have a gun, but I don't have a match over the whiskey. See, they have to match however you choose to lay it down. So that's the most I could do. For a solo game, what you do next is, as long as you laid down one clue, you draw one from the other hand over here. I drew one. Is there anything that I can lay down, or have I solved it? Do I have a match, whiskey, gun, and hat? I have a hat, whiskey, and gun, but I don't have the matches. And once you lay the cards down, they're stuck, and I can't lay anything down. So that means I have to just put these down and pass, right? If you have to pass and it's not solved, you have to play one of your twist cards. So in this case, I'll just lay one of them down. You pick one, and it says, before the next round begins, unflip a hot tip, if possible. That's awesome. That's actually not... oh, no, that is bad. I'll show you what hot tips are. Okay, so that's for the next round, though, that will go into place. So I place it up there, but I'll show you what the hot tips are when we get the card. All right, so I had to pass, but that still leaves my second hand, so I'll flip this over. And again, this is just how a 2-player game would go. I just modified a little bit there for you. All right, can I lay anything down? I can. And I'm going to pretend that I could lay this down. I can't, but if I could, see that Apollo? That means I can flip over a hot tip. Boom, right there. So that means that I have one hot tip available. You can use these hot tips right here. It tells us if I have 2 flipped over, then let's say I had this, I could flip 2 of them over, mark them as used, and take a benefit. I could draw 1 extra card, or remove 1 plot twist if I had 3, or if I had 4, remove 2 plot twists. All right? So that's kind of my guide there, but we didn't actually play that, but I can solve it with these cards because I can play cash on top, and now I have a hat, whiskey, a gun, and the matches all available. So these all go into my hand, and I solved the mystery, so these all get discarded into the discard pile, and since I solved it, I get to read a clue on the back. The clue is going to give me information about the murder. It's also going to tell me about new clues that are available. So in this case, Buckminster is alive and well, but someone wanted me dead. The man killed in the cafe was an old vaudevillain called Hoople. He was down on his luck. I gave him my coat and hat 2 weeks ago. This is personal, and I'm calling in my markers. See if Slats, Lonigan, or Pinky has heard anything. So that means he now told me, all right, I can speak to Slats, Lonigan, and Pinky. So I go to my available clues, and I look for Pinky. Cool. So Pinky's now available. And Slats, Lonigan. So those are people that I can go and question. And then the ones that I've earned, I just put over here. And I'm going to try and piece together all these clues to find the answer by the end of the game. Well, how does the game end? Well, here's the thing. Let's say that my next one, I went to solve this clue. I'd have to apply the plot twist if I haven't been able to remove it. So I'd take that negative effect, and I'd take my hand back up to 5. I've got 5, and I'd draw 5 more for the other hand. 3, 4, and 5. Just like that. Okay. And I believe according to the rules, you can always discard your hand as well before the next round starts, but that's in the instructions. All right. But let's say that I didn't solve the clue. I went through all my cards and I had no more to play and I didn't solve it. I didn't get those icons. Then what happens is I failed that clue. I put it back here. It's still available. I discard one of my bullets. Remember, there are actually supposed to be 3. After I've discarded the third one, after that, if I fail, then I start discarding clues, starting with the largest number. They're numbered from 1, in this case, to 18, with the higher number ones being the most valuable for information. So I would discard 18. It's out of the game. Once there are no clues left to solve, then the game ends. And you try to solve it using your case questions and see whether or not you won. That's it. The artwork, it really is beautiful. It really is cool. I don't know if it stands out as much as Pulp Detective, but it's not really fair to compare the two, I don't think. It's great artwork. And what's cool about this is there is actually a mystery to solve. So as you follow the clues, you actually have to solve the case. And I enjoyed that. What I didn't enjoy as much was the gameplay in between, which is the majority of the game, where it's more of a puzzle, as you saw. Now that part is enjoyable, it is, but it drags on for a really long time. So a game for me was about an hour and a half. It says here 60 plus minutes, and that's right, it could be actually 2 hours. And a lot of that is solving the puzzles. So I enjoy it enough that I will keep it because I like the theme and I like solving the mysteries. But I'm not strongly recommending it just because it's kind of like 2 games put together. But if you like that, by all means, get a hold of it. I got this from my local game store, Cape Fear Games, so it is still in print somewhere. I'll see if I can post a link if I can find it for you. All right, let's get on to the big boy here. All right, let's go on to Detective. And we've got 2 expansions, and I'll tell you what, we are going to do each one at a time because they are all unique. Oh, it's heavy. Okay. Can you see my head? Maybe. Detective, you don't need to see my face. Detective, City of Angels, a crime story by Evan Derrick, pictured by Vincent Dutrait. So, cool thing here, Evan Derrick, he's a cool dude. Very sharp-dressed fellow. He's got an Instagram where he just shows off his good style. I think that's pretty cool. So, the art, though, something to note about the art is just the passion that was put into it. There's a note in the instruction manual about the specifics that were wanted in the map for the game board. So they went back to like a retro LA map that they were inspired by from the pulp 1930s, 40s era in order to make this map accurate to the theme. So this game oozes passion project. I love this game. I have played every single case in all the expansions and this. There is one case from an expansion that I haven't played, so I need to get that. It's just one new case. But I'll tell you what, let's just look at how Detective City of Angels plays first. Alright, Detective City of Angels. This is the base game setup with the tutorial game setup. So let's kind of see how the solo game plays. As you can see, there aren't a lot of moving parts. Don't let that fool you. This game is all about investigation, story, and following your gut. You have to follow a lead when you find it. That's the only way to not run out of time and still solve the case. So, what do we got here? We've got your detective. You can choose one of 4 figurines. I, of course, chose Mr. Dapper because that's me. You go to your detective casebook and go to the case that you're doing, in this case, Blood on the Pier, and you'll have a detective briefing from your very angry captain. It's awesome. You can also go to their website and just listen to the audio. It's so much better if you do that. They tell you exactly how to set it up, what you need to do to solve the case. In this case, you must identify the guilty suspect, the murder weapon, and the suspect's motive. You got to guess 3 things correctly. There are some special rules for every case, as shown here. There's also difficulty levels. This one is Gumshoe. It's the easiest. Then it goes up to Veteran and Hardcore, or Hard-Boiled is what the other is called. Alright, so I've already done the briefing and I've read it. I don't want to spoil that for you unless you want me to do a playthrough sometime. I'd love that. Get into character and really enjoy it. Alright, right over here we have the day marker. For this first case, we only have 8 days to solve it. Once we reach this final guess token, we must make our final guess and check to see if we're correct. Normally the day marker starts at 12, but this is a tiny little investigation just to get us used to it. We've also got the board set up with our murder victim, Sally Foote, poor lady, and our 3 suspects. We have 3 other cards which we'll reveal as we investigate. Usually this is full. Sometimes there's a whole deck of other cards available as well. Sometimes there's even extra locations that get unlocked and placed on the board. Anything is possible. But anyway, we've got a couple suspects out on the floor. Normally these would be standing up. I'm just laying them down so you can see them. You can see the locations are all numbered. The locations come in different regions that you move about within. You've got South Bay down here, Central LA, West Side, Hollywood, and San Gabriel Valley over here. We've got our crime scene right down here at the Horseshoe Pier, and that will change for every case. What we want to do as our fearless detective is start questioning and investigating. So to start the game, I start at any precinct of my choice. Let's start right here in Long Beach at 95. Now that I'm there, I can take my actions from my detective player board. So let's say I want to move. I have 4 cubes that I get to use before we move down a day. Once I use the 4 cubes, we move this down 1 day. Alright, I want to move. So I can move 1 space within my region, within South Bay. Let's say the first person I want to get to is right here, Mr. Dumb DiCaprio at the Olympic Stadium. I'm going to move 1 to get to the border of my region, and I'm going to have to move a second time within that new region. So that's going to take 2 moves, and I can now interrogate dumb DiCaprio right there. But before we do that, let's take an action to search the location. This is location 42. In the solo game, then you take your case question grid, and it's actually the search grid side, and we're searching for location 42. All right, we have a number, 651. So what we do is we go to our sleuth casebook. This is made just for solo. It's really impressive. And we're going to go to the number it said, which was 762, I think. We'll go there and we'll read only that one. And it will tell us whether we have information. So maybe we find something and flip over a card. Maybe we don't find anything at all. Searching a location is a risk. Sometimes there's nothing. So you kind of want to have a good gut feeling that it's worth it. But this is just for the example of you seeing how the game plays. Next, let's choose search suspect. All right, got there. We're not even asking him any questions. We are just going to pat this dude down because he's shady. So we're going to go to our search grid and we're going to see dumb DiCaprio. We are going to search him. You only get to search a location once. You only search a suspect once. Dumb DiCaprio, we are given 1082. I'd go in my sleuth casebook, flip over to that number, and read it, and it would tell me either information to get me going on a lead, or it's a dead end. All right? So we've used our 4 actions. So our day marker goes down. We only have 7 days left. It took us a full day to do that. We refresh our cubes. Now let's get to questioning this dude. Again, you do not have to do all these things in one spot. I would not recommend it. But we're going to question Dumb DiCaprio. What a terrible name. All right, Dumb DiCaprio. I want to ask Dumb DiCaprio about Sally Foote, the victim. What does he know about this murder victim? So I'll look here on my question grid, and we'll see Dumb DiCaprio. I'm asking him about the murder victim, which is A. You'll see these are all lettered. So A, that means we're going to go to 737. I'm going to question him, and we're going to see what he has to say about the murder victim by turning there and reading it. Now, I've read it, but you know what? I don't think he's telling the truth. I think he's lying. So I'm going to press him. And you get the instructions there. What was the number? 737. Then I can challenge. All right, I'm going to challenge him. So I'm going to turn to page 374. So I'm going to shove him against the wall, and I'm going to make him talk. Since I challenged him, I shove him against the wall. He's not happy. He gives me a response, and it turns out he was telling the truth. That's bad. So I just roughed up a witness, and I didn't need to. So I gain 1 stress because I messed up. I flip a stress marker over. Here's the thing. If 3 of these get flipped over, the final guess marker moves up 1, which essentially means I lose 1 whole day or 4 actions. It's a big deal. Once you move that up, you reset your stress markers. So you don't want to challenge just everything. You gotta follow your gut and what you know. As I learn things from responses, I jot it down in my grid over here. So I asked, this is a sample one that's already filled out just for the purpose of this video. All right, so I asked Dumb DiCaprio about A, and I'm going to write down a little jot of what I learned. Nothing big, 1 or 2 words, maybe a few keywords, and that's it. And over time, I'm going to really get a good idea of how this case is going so that I know what leads to follow, and I can know who's lying without just having to blindly challenge. Here's another thing you can do, though. Let's say I question him again, and this time I'm going to question him about himself. So I'll look at my question grid. I'm going to ask Dumb DiCaprio about himself. That's D. And I'm going to turn to 1088. All right, so I turn there. I read it. I know he's lying, so I'm going to challenge him again, and it will tell me to challenge this, turn to this number. And I'll turn there, and we'll see this time, oh, I was right. He was lying. So I get the real information. That's awesome. And since I challenged successfully, I gain leverage over him with the little hat. What that means is the next time I question him, so let's do it again. And I would never question one witness this early. Again, this is just for demo. But I'll question him again, only this time I'm going to use my leverage before I turn to look at his response. And that means that I turn to whatever his response is, and I get to challenge him and view the response. And if it says gain 1 stress, I don't gain any stress. All right, so that's a nice safety to get leverage. You don't have to use it, but you can. The next moves that you have, actually I have this on the wrong side. This is the multiplayer side. Let's flip it over. The next actions that I have are just to cycle through those options. It really is pretty basic. So I used those 4, I go down another day, and I decide to move somewhere else to search. New locations get opened up, new items come up. You go through until you either run out of time by this reaching the final guess marker, or if you want to solve it early, you always can. That's not likely to happen. Once you are to making your final guess, you write down your final guesses in the solve section. Those will coincide with numbers in the back, and you'll have instructions on how to solve it. You add those numbers up in order to get one number, which you'll turn to in the book. And if it tells you that you solved the case, you solved it. If not, then you go into overtime, and you reset this to day 3, final guess at the bottom. You have 3 more days to get more information. Once you get to the bottom, you get to guess again. If you fail that time, you get one last overtime, and you put it at day 3, and you'll get down to the final guess. You'll be surprised. Most games will require you to go into both overtimes, because you just, unless you are really good at following your gut, and that happened with me, then I got it on the first guess. First guess, you get the highest recognition. Second guess, you're all right. Third guess, you barely keep your job. And that is it. That is Detective City of Angels. All right, so as you saw there is something very important to know if you pick this game up, because this is not a low price point. This is about $90 retail, I believe. And these right here are all the components that you will not be using if you play solo only. Let's take a look at them. All right, some things that you won't see in the solo that are in multiplayer. First of all, the search cards that come with every case, these are different, and they're within the case book with the cards that we used in solo mode, the search, and then the responses for the chisel. However, these really are in the solo mode, they just look different. So these cards and these cards are replaced by the sleuth casebook. Now in the multiplayer game though, you have different options as the detectives to use kickback cards. You have solve tokens. You have this money here that you can use for paying people off, things like that, to get information. Grift cards I don't know anything about yet because I haven't done the multiplayer, so I don't know. And then you can also get favors, and you can bribe snitches, and I think there's another side to those. Bribe or snitch, that's what it is. And then you've also got these tokens here, and I actually don't know what those do. But those are all the multiplayer items that you will not be using, as well as the mechanics that you will not be using in solo mode. Okay, so it's important to know, if you plan to play this solo only, there are many components you won't be using. Does that mean it's not worth solo play? Well, that's up for you to decide, but I want you to know the solo play is outstanding. They went out of their way to make a completely separate, while still being the same game for solo. This is not tagged on. It was amazing. And the reason that it's worth it for me to pay $90 for this is because I played through all of the missions solo. Now I have the option of replaying as the Chisel. Here's a brief explanation of the Chisel, even though it's multiplayer. After you've solved a case solo, you can play it multiplayer, and you can play as the Chisel. You shouldn't play as the Chisel unless you've already solved the case, because being the Chisel will ruin that part for you. Once you are the Chisel, this is what you will have in your arsenal. You will get the search cards from the case box right here, and you'll also get the responses. So as the Chisel, I haven't gotten to play as it yet, so I can't go much into it. But basically, you work as the game master, where you get to play the part of the suspects, and you get to decide what kind of responses you will give to the detectives when they interrogate or when they search. There are rules that you get to follow that help you, so you are not on your own at all, but you do get freedom to decide how challenging or easy it will be. The game tells you that a good Chisel basically plays in a way to make the game challenging, but really you want to make it interesting, but you're not really out to beat the other detectives. You can play that way, but it's more just to make it as interesting as possible. So the Chisel has their own book with all the solutions for all the cases, which is why you should play it solo first. And then you're going to have a good time messing with your friends by sending them off on false leads, red herrings, or if they're really struggling, giving them the right answer to help them along. Okay, so you see, you can play through first solo. And even though I might not ever do it, I have the chance, the option to play with all these other pieces if I want to, and playing solo actually allowed me to both solve the case and later play as the Chisel. I find that makes it completely worth it. But let's look at the expansions here. Oh, I'm just messing that blanket up like no one's business, and that's okay. Let's go through, I believe the first expansion was Bullets Over Hollywood. All right. Bullets Over Hollywood has 4 cases, and these were great, okay? So just like with this one, it comes with the base game, it comes with different difficulty levels for the cases. Okay, so of the base game and the 2 expansions, this was my least favorite, mainly because that final mission solo was a disappointment. I feel feels like they dropped the ball. But multiplayer, that final case looks awesome. So if you're planning for multiplayer, cool. If you're planning just for solo, this is a nice addition. It's not priority, I wouldn't say, but I enjoyed it. Now, Smoke and Mirrors, this was cool. This one's super cool. It adds some new locations to the map, and it has a final mission where, I mean, my heart was like beating. Like I don't want to spoil anything on it, and I don't want to hype it up because maybe it wouldn't be the same for anyone else. But man, I was like, I gotta solve this, and you're on a deadline, and you're like, you gotta save people's lives. It felt climactic. It felt like the end to a story. So let's take a quick look at the inside of this. All right, and there are more expansions. Like I said, there's one other case I haven't played, a standalone case that is being released, and who knows, maybe there will be more. I don't know. Have you played any of these games or any other detective-themed games that you think I would like to check out? Please let me know in the comments. If you have questions about these games, please let me know in the comments. Next, I've got a great video here for some more solo board games in different genres. I love you all. I'll see you next time. I wonder if I could get out. So, you see here, I forgot the key. Call the fire department, please. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh. Old age. This is not very smooth. Ouch.